I want to see whether we're skirting with any issues of civil rights violations by continuing to try to throw roadblocks in front of Shane's visits. Tasana just recently got out of jail for her issue where she caused a car crash where she injured a couple of people.
So what I have us on for, I have us on for a review hearing, but I also have us on for an adequate cause motion that Mr. Llewellyn has filed since our last appearance. And I'm just going to open up our digital file here. Mr. Llewellyn's proposal or motion for adequate cause and a proposed new parenting plan. I did receive, Ms. Burkett, your response. So thank you for getting that in. Also see that it was served on Mr. Llewellyn, October 27th. Mr. Llewellyn, have you received the response to your motion?
I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you need any additional time to respond or review that response?
I didn't know that I needed to respond. I thought that was just her response, and then we had our court date. Was I in need of doing so?
Well, I'm asking you if it was just served on you just a couple days ago. So I'm asking if you're wanting any additional time to review or respond to the objection to your motion.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Lawrence, have you received the motions, the proposed parenting plan, and Ms. Burkett's response?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
Okay. So let's, we will take up the adequate cause hearing then. But first, I think I'll just ask for Mr. Lawrence's input on what's happened since our prior hearing to help kind of guide how I handle this case.
Your Honor, Shane has always tried to increase the amount of visitation that he has with his son, Abel. Tasana just recently got out of jail for her issue where she caused a car crash where she injured a couple of people while under the influence of alcohol and possibly marijuana. I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning of this and put it into some perspective. Tasana has always been fearful of Shane relapsing, and Shane does have a history of relapsing up until about 2 years ago. His medication wasn't properly dosed, and the medication that he had made him feel lethargic. He was also utilizing marijuana at the time. And then about 2 years ago, when he went to Core Health, they got him on a new medication, which has made him feel very good. And he's more than willing to take that. And he's been providing the court with copies of his dosing levels, and he is in compliance with the treatment that is being provided to him. And there's been no relapses over the last couple of years. What Tasana, I understand her concerns, but what she forgets is her behavior in all of this. And it was just a miracle that Abel was not with her during the time that she had her car crash. So she's not a totally safe parent either. And so where we're at in this situation is when Shane undergoes a manic phase due to his bipolar disorder, he does not recognize when he is starting to go into it. However, those around him notice it quite distinctly. It doesn't just happen like a flip of a switch. It takes a little time for it to develop. But also, I have some concerns that Shane, being a person with a disability and who has followed the court's orders over the last couple of years and has, for all intents and purposes, been stable, that I'm concerned that continuing to put him through unnecessary hoops may be a violation of his civil rights. And I have reached out to an Americans with Disabilities coordinator through the Federal Department of Justice, and I'm going to be speaking with her this afternoon. And I want to see whether we're skirting with any issues of civil rights violations by continuing to try to throw roadblocks in front of Shane's visits. At this point, what I would recommend to the court is the supervised visits, first of all, were through reconnecting families, and that became a financial hardship for Shane. Then he had Ms. Woodage providing the supervision, and she did not want to supervise them to the level that Shane needed. And so that fell apart. At this stage of the game, what I'm recommending to the court is to consider every other weekend day visits only, from like 10 to 4 or 10 to 6. When Shane picks up or somebody delivers Abel, they can assess, because everybody in the family knows Shane, whether or not he is off balance. And if that is the case, then he needs to be willing to then go seek his medical provider out and to get his medication adjusted. But if he is fine, then he should be able to have a day visit only for both Saturday and Sunday over a period of time. And I don't know how long that might be, three months or so, before we consider whether overnight visits should be allowed. But I think Shane should have to provide his medication compliance to Tess on a regular basis. I don't know if that's quarterly or monthly or whatever, but Tess also needs to be able to provide to Shane her treatment compliance for her substance abuse issues. Because at this point, her situation is more acute than Shane's at this point. And so that would be my input, Your Honor.
I very much appreciate that. So first, what I'm going to do, Mr. Llewellyn, as it pertains to your motion for adequate cause to change a parenting plan, I just first want to hear from you if there's anything you want to say in addition to your motion or based on what Mr. Lawrence has said to the court today.
So yes, I would like to say that the times that I had been manic was when I had smoked weed. I would go a long time without smoking and I'd think, oh, I'm fine. And then I'd smoke again and it would just right then and there, it set me off. And I no longer have any desire to smoke. And I am taking double the amount of medication that I'm supposed to. My brain is fully saturated. I asked to raise even higher. And my med prescriber said that that's for people with epilepsy. So I'm kind of a statistic for her with the amount of medication that I take compared to 30 or 40 of her other clients. And like I say, I'm not going to smoke anymore. And that was my onsets for episodes pretty much every single time.
Okay. How often are you seeing your provider for medication management?
So I was seeing her once a month, but she had said that since I'm doing so well and in compliance fully and my UAs are good and I'm on time to all of my visits, she said that we can go to every 3 months. But if it puts Tasana's mind at ease, I am willing to go back to monthly. That doesn't bother me. As well as the other thing I wanted to add is Keith had said every other weekend, no overnight stays. That way during the pickups and drop-off, people can see if I'm mentally stable. Due to the fact that I no longer smoke weed, I was able to get into an Oxford house. I have my own room here, and there are many people who know me and have known me for about a half a year now, and they are willing to allow my son to stay in my room with me. I have a giant king-size bed. Again, it's a room of my own. They all know me. They monitor me, and obviously I'm in an Oxford house, so I can't use. I'd be kicked out, and like I say, I have zero desire to use. So I see personally no reason to not get overnight stays, but obviously that's what we're talking about here.
And how often are you doing the UAs?
That's what it was once a month, but my med prescriber switched it to once every 3 months.
Oh,
But
so your medication management and the UAs are every 3 months now?
yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I can switch back to once a month if that's preferred.
Okay. And then the Oxford House, I have had this come up in some other cases, and some of them have been open to having children there, some aren't. You're saying that your Oxford House does allow for that, but there wouldn't be a separate bed or bedroom for child. Is that right?
Correct. They don't allow like full time, which obviously that's not what I'm getting, but
Yeah.
every other weekend they are fine with. And like I say, I do have a king size bed, and it's a room of my own. It's a very nice room. It's downstairs, secluded from everyone else, and there's actually two giant yards. There's one giant yard up top, and there's one giant yard down below, and it's in a safe part, tucked away from like really even the street, and there's no neighborhoods around for any kind of you know bad activity to go on around him.
Okay.
So I'm in a good
Then-
place in life and where I'm currently staying.
And then you're working during the week, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor. My schedule just switched to 10 to 6:30. I was 11 to 7:30, but seeing as how I'm outside year round doing door sales, they switched the hours because of light time. We're
Okay.
losing out on light time.
And you have the weekend days off of work, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence, any additional input? And then Tasana, I'll come to you based on the living situation in the Oxford House.
I was not aware that Mr. Llewellyn was in an Oxford House. I would have concerns about overnight visits there, but as far as day visits, I think it's fine.
Yeah. And I tend to agree that I wouldn't at this point be comfortable with overnights with the Oxford House living situation. But I do believe, Mr. Llewellyn, that the fact that you are there gives me some additional security ideas that there are folks who see you every day. So that if there was an episode that was perhaps coming up, I think you have some additional kind of safety in place for that. So I think that is good. Ms. Burkett,
Your Honor, may I say something super quickly?
Sure, go ahead.
So there is one other person that has their child here on occasion, and they do stay overnight. And I get that's probably a different situation than ours, but everyone in this house has been here for 6+ months. And like I say, I don't see how it's an unsafe environment, because if anyone does use again, they get kicked out. So they're very safe people. I've known them for a long time. I'm monitored well. I agree.
I understand. Ms. Burkett, what do you want the court to know in addition to what you have filed as your objection?
I also was not aware of the Oxford House situation. I don't know much about Oxford homes, so I'll have to look into that a little bit. As far as my sobriety, I have been sober for over 2 years from both alcohol and marijuana. And I also get tested for that regularly, at least a few times a month. So that was a one-time thing. Totally unfortunate and completely my fault, but was a one-time thing. And Abel is very happy here. He does love seeing his father. I do hope that they can continue that connection. It does just worry me about the relapsing. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And then how often are you doing any sort of substance abuse check-ins, appointments, UAs, that sort of thing?
So I check in with my DOC officer. I call her every day, but we meet up in person once a week currently. I get tested once a week as well. And I also see a counselor. It's not to do with drugs or alcohol, but I see my counselor twice a month, just for regular mental health check-ins. I also a drug and alcohol evaluation scheduled for Monday. And I had a hair follicle test done as well that came back clean. So, and I
And
can
then-
file as well.
Okay, sorry to cut you off. Did the once a week testing you do, is that a UA or is that hair follicle?
It's a mouth swab that she does.
Okay. And what is that test for?
It tests for pretty much everything. THC, methamphetamines, any kind of drug that I've ever heard of, pretty much.
And is there any specific testing for alcohol that you're doing?
That was not on the list, no.
Okay. The incident that you had that led to your sentence, was that alcohol related or other substance related?
Alcohol and marijuana.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Lawrence, any input from you based on what you've heard from both parties?
I'm pleased to hear that Tasana has been clean as long as she has. I think both of these folks really love their son and want the best for him. And right now is a kind of a turbulent time. Shane appears to be have found the combination to keep him stable. And Tasana, if she follows through with her program, should be stable as well. And I would hope that all of this would lead to a wonderful relationship between Abel and both parents. But at some point, we can't be stuck in the past and need to move forward on this.
Yeah, I agree. Here's what I'm going to do today. I am, first of all, Mr. Llewellyn, going to grant your motion for adequate cause. I think that there are enough findings and changes since your parenting plan was put into place, frankly, with both of you, that it does warrant another look by this court for what your parenting plan should look like. I am not going to rule on a formal parenting plan today, but I am going to file a bench order that changes visitation and certain requirements right now. And certainly, Mr. Lawrence, if your discussions with folks changes anything when we come back for our next review date, I'd certainly like to hear it. But what I'm proposing at this time in my bench order, my ruling will be that we are going to take off the requirement for supervised visitation. Visitation with Abel will go unsupervised. It will be every other weekend. Mr. Llewellyn, if just until we do our next review date and see how this is going, I'm going to keep it daytime visits, and then we can revisit overnights. I do have some concern about the lack of a separate bed. I'd want to know more from Oxford House about that accommodation. But would you prefer 10 to 4 or 10 to 6?
10 to 6, Your Honor. That's what we've had. Well,
Okay.
I was supposed to have been getting.
Okay. So what I'll order is unsupervised visits every other weekend, Abel with you, 10 to 6, Saturday and Sunday. I would like to have you do, and since you're willing and have offered it, I would like to go to once a month UAs/medication management and have that submitted to Mr. Lawrence and Ms. Burkett, just so we can monitor. I think that'll also be helpful for you when we come to re-review for overnights, if you're willing to do that. And it sounds like you are.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And then I do believe the other reason I'm granting the adequate cause motion is a change in circumstances with you, Ms. Burkett. I know it was very fortunate that your parents were around to help while you dealt with your legal issues. I do believe that the court, in setting the new parenting plan, does need to at least initially monitor your substance treatment. So I am going to have you, you said you have a drug and alcohol evaluation scheduled for next week?
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to make that a condition of this court's obligations. And when you get that done, please submit a copy of that to the GAL so that we can see completion of that. I'm going to indicate that another obligation will be that you follow whatever treatment recommendations the substance abuse counselor recommends for you. And then I would like you to file your either, I'll put in here, either the mouth swab that you're already doing, but my bigger concern is alcohol, since that seemed to be the factor in your legal issues. So if your DOC officer wants to add, UAs to that, or if you want to get those on your own, I'll also put a requirement of at least, much like Mr. Llewellyn, once a month, alcohol or hair follicle testing, where my primary concern is checking for THC and alcohol.
Your Honor, if I may interject.
Please do.
I was the former director of Longview Work Release, and I was a parole officer back in the day.
Okay.
The DOC offices, I believe, have a portable breathalyzer that would give alcohol readings, and it's possible when she goes in and sees her officer once a week that they might be able to just have her blow into the tube and get it right there.
Okay. So I'll put in my bench order some leeway because I understand, these things all cost money and it all starts to add up. So this does seem like a good compromise that if you want to check with your DOC officer and they can add an alcohol testing component to the mouth swab, I'm happy to accept that. And I'm not going to require weekly. I'm just going to require that once a month, just like I'm doing with Mr. Llewellyn.
Okay.
Okay. So anything else, and then we'll set a 3-month review date to see how all of this is going. Anything else the parties want me to consider or review before signing a bench order and the order granting adequate cause?
I'd like to ask something, Your Honor. If I didn't catch on to this, I apologize. But if I could get UAs from Tasana regularly as well, information about them.
Yes.
And then also, I'm willing to do literally anything and everything to get more time with him and the overnight stays. So if the king size bed is a problem, I will get rid of the king size bed and sleep on a queen size bed. I mean, a twin size bed and get him a twin size bed. So we have separate bedding.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to do anything required.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's the only reason that I'm not granting overnights right now. I just think given the history here, and I agree 100% with Mr. Lawrence, we can't dwell in the past, but I do have to take the past into account. I think some of the allegations when you do go into a bipolar episode were quite concerning for safety. And so, I want to be realistic about that and do what's in the best interest of the child. But I certainly understand you've put in your time. You're 2 years without an episode. That's highly commendable. Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you will get there. So.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I have one last issue.
Yes.
Shane has asked me to sit in on a visit with him and Abel. And we're going into yet another review hearing, and I'm probably going to be, having interviews and reading documents from both parties. I'm asking the court to consider giving me more funds for this matter.
Yes, I do believe, given the unique circumstances in this case, I will grant our typical order would be an additional 10 hours on this case with the normal hourly billing. Does that feel sufficient to you?
Right now, I believe for county pay, it's $14.85 at $67.50 an hour or something like that.
Correct. Does that seem like it'll be enough?
That will be sufficient, Your Honor.
Okay. Would you be able just to submit an order to me granting that additional time and money, and I will happily get that signed for you? I think this case warrants that additional time and attention.
Yes, I will.
Okay. I will get that signed when it comes to me. Anything else from the parties?
I did have one thing.
Yes.
So there is a order in place in this case. which if possible, I would like to continue having most of the time. However, when Shane does have Abel, I think it's important for him to be able to communicate with me during that time. Needs me to come pick him up, or if he needs me for any reason, I want Shane to know that during the time that he has Abel, it's perfectly okay for him to contact me about our son, if that's possible.
Okay. And I think that and you're talking about the restraining order that's been put into place.
Yes.
I'm just looking to see. You don't have a separate standalone civil protection order, is that correct? Is it just the one that was done under the family law case?
I believe so. Yeah.
Is what I would be inclined to do if the parties are in agreement. I'm just going all the way back to look for that. Is I would put in my bench order that I would allow electronic communication between the two parties. That would not be a violation of the restraining order. And I'm talking about text messaging mostly. The reason I would say that is the court can review it, Ms. Burkett, if you felt like the communication was inappropriate or harassing in any way. So rather than phone calls where Ms. Burkett could say, Shane said this to me and I thought it was harassing and I have no way to monitor that. That if during the visitation when Abel is with Shane would be allowed to text message electronically with you anything about child visitation, safety, or welfare.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, would that work for you, Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes, the only thing I am wondering is, I understand that during my visits we can text, but for the pickups and drop-offs, if that's something involved in the texts, seeing as how it's only during the visits, how does that go? How does that work for like interaction for pickup and drop-off if that's what we talk about during the text messages?
I'm not quite sure I follow your question. What I'm saying is how do you guys already coordinate? Do you have a third party that communicates with you about when they're coming?
Yes, Your Honor.
I would continue that because what I'm focused on is when Abel is with you, if there's a question you have about, what he likes or doesn't like, and you want to ask her, or something, or she wants to check in, or Abel saying he wants to talk to his mom. And so you're letting her know he wants to talk to her. Those are the types of things I would allow during the visits. So I think just keep doing what you're doing with regard to third-party drop-offs. And again, we will revisit all of this in 3 months.
Yes, Your Honor. And I will keep it very minimal and only about Abel.
That's great. Yeah, I'm going to put in text messaging regarding visitation, circumstances, welfare, and safety of Abel. Obviously, if there's an emergency, use your best judgment. I mean, if he's being rushed to the ER, do what you need to do to let the other parent know. But for just kind of the basic 10 to 6 things, use text messaging.
Yes, Your Honor. And does that continue on the same schedule that it's been on? Or would that start this coming weekend? Or
let's talk about that. When's the last time you had Abel or saw Abel?
I got to see him on Saturday for, what was it, 6 hours?
Okay.
10 to 4 I was able to see him.
Okay.
But I would propose, I mean, it's entirely up to you guys and if Tess agrees, but since I had missed out on so much time with him, if we could switch it to this weekend and then every other weekend,
Okay.
that'd be nice because I lost a lot of time with him.
Ms. Burkett, would you be willing to start this every other week visitation this coming weekend? Would that work for you?
We actually had some plans going this weekend. He has a play date with his cousins that he really doesn't want to miss. If it would be okay to stay on the same schedule we've been on, just because we do make plans.
Let's start it. What would be that date? So the every other weeks would start next weekend, November 11th. Okay.
That sounds great, Your Honor.
And then let's set the review date. Let's see, February. I know our dockets. 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. It is going to be 9 a.m. on Wednesdays still. Okay. Perfect. So let's put you on. Wednesday, February 7, 2024 at 9 a.m. Okay, anything else the parties need from me? Otherwise, I appreciate both of you being so willing to do the things you need to do to move this forward and give Abel the most stable parenting situation he can. So thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Your Honor.
I'd
All
like to
right.
thank everyone involved in the case. Thank
Yes,
you guys.
thank you for your patience and work, Mr. Llewellyn. Mr. Lawrence, anything else from you?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I will get that bench order signed. Okay, you're free to log out.
Your
Thank
Honor,
you.
I
Oh.
just last thing that I just thought of right now.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, can I hear Tasana's how she feels about the whole king size bed thing? I know you said that's not a giant issue, but it did ring a bell in your mind, so I'm wondering how she feels about that.
Why don't I let you chat with Mr. Lawrence about that? That's something that he could talk to the parties about before we come back on our review hearing.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right, thank you.